The call came just after midnight. A break-in alarm at an abandoned trucking depot off County Road 12. Sheriff Miles Hanlon didn't expect much. Kids sometimes use the place for dares. But when his K9 Juno froze outside a rusted storage room and began barking, a deep, guttural sound that wasn't her usual, something in Miles' chest went cold. The air smelled of oil and rain-soaked wood. The padlock was old, but still sealed tight. Juno wouldn't move, wouldn't stop. When they finally pried that door open, what lay inside made even the toughest of them tremble. If stories that linger in your bones stay with you, you might want to follow along, quietly, for more like this. The rain had started before sundown. Not a storm, not really, just that endless drizzle that blurs the line between evening and night. Sheriff Miles Hanlon sat in his cruiser, headlights cutting through mist, radio humming with the soft static of an empty county. Dispatch, this is Unit 3. Checking in on the alarm at the old Brindle Depot. Over. The voice on the other end crackled. Copy that, Miles. Motion sensor trip around 12:08. No other units available tonight. Budget cuts. You know the drill. He did. The whole county had been cutting corners for years. The Brindle Depot had been abandoned since the trucking company went bankrupt. Half a mile of overgrown fence line, rusted trailers, and collapsing warehouses no one cared to demolish. He glanced at the back seat where Juno, his German shepherd, sat alert, golden eyes reflecting the dashboard light. She'd been restless all evening, pacing at the slightest sound. All right, girl, Miles muttered, pushing open the door. Let's make it quick. The depot loomed like a skeleton against the fog. Chain link fence sagging, the security light flickering, buzzing like a dying fly. The only movement came from the rain, streaking down steel walls. Miles walked with his flashlight, sweeping over the gravel. Juno trotted beside him, ears twitching. Anyone here, he called out, voice echoing off the hollow loading bays. Nothing, just the hum of rain and wind whistling through sheet metal. He approached the office wing, door hanging on one hinge, papers scattered and soaked on the floor. The alarm panel inside blinked a dull red, the light barely visible through grime. He silenced it, then stood still listening. That's when he heard it. A faint thump, then another, slow, muffled, coming from deeper in the building. Juno stiffened, tail rigid. Easy, Miles whispered. He unlatched the safety on his sidearm. The sound came again, from the hallway that led to the storage section, a long concrete corridor ending in a row of locked metal doors. They moved quietly, boots echoing. Water dripped from the ceiling. Each drop a small explosion in the silence. Halfway down the hall, Juno stopped. Her nose lifted toward the third door on the left, a rusted storage room marked Inventory Number 7. She began to growl. Low, deep, the kind of sound that starts in the gut. Miles felt it vibrate through the leash. Something in there? He asked softly. The dog barked once, sharp, urgent. Then again. Miles's pulse quickened. He tested the doorknob. Locked. He radioed in. Dispatch. I've got a secured door at Brindle Depot. Possible intruder inside. Requesting backup. Static. Then, copy that, Miles. Closest unit is 30 minutes out. He sighed. Of course. 30 minutes in this rain. Might as well be an hour. He looked down at Juno. She was pawing the bottom of the door now, barking in short bursts, fur bristled along her spine. All right, he said. We're not waiting. He grabbed the crowbar from his belt, wedged it under the padlock hasp. Rust flaked off like old blood. He pried once, twice, until the metal screeched. The lock snapped. He took one breath, hand on his gun, and pulled the door open. The flashlight beam sliced into the dark. The room smelled wrong, thick, metallic, and something else, sweet, decaying. Juno barked, lunging forward, then stopped cold. Miles raised the beam higher. At first, all he saw were boxes, stacked to the ceiling, marked with old company labels. But the deeper he looked, the more he realized these boxes weren't empty. Some were nailed shut, and one, right in the center of the room, was open. Inside, wrapped in a plastic tarp, lay something that didn't belong in any warehouse. A human arm, pale, Cold, the wrist handcuffed to a piece of pipe. Miles stumbled back. Jesus! Juno barked again, circling, sniffing the air, whining this time. High, frantic. Miles swallowed, forced himself forward. He lifted the tarp a few inches. The rest of the body came into view. Female, mid-30s, wearing what looked like a hospital gown. Her eyes were open. Dispatch, he said, voice trembling now. We got a confirmed DOA. Possible homicide. Send the coroner and state investigators ASAP. Static again. The rain must have been killing the signal. He looked around the room. Every wall had scratches, like someone had tried to claw their way out. And on the concrete floor, faint but visible under the beam, were drag marks, thin streaks leading from the door to the corner. Miles followed them until his light caught something on the wall. Writing, scrawled in dark, dried lines, maybe marker, maybe blood. They weren't supposed to find her. He felt his stomach drop. A sound echoed behind him. Faint, but there, like a footstep on metal. He turned fast, flashlight swinging, but there was no one, just rain dripping through a hole in the roof. Then he noticed something else. The door behind him was slowly swinging shut. Hey! He lunged, grabbing it before it latched. Juno barked, jerking toward the hall. There was movement out there, a shadow slipping past a light beam, just out of focus. Miles raised his weapon. Sheriff's Department. Stop right there. Silence. The shadow was gone. He and Juno stepped back into the hallway, hearts pounding. The rain outside roared louder, as if the whole building were sinking under it. Miles scanned left, right. Empty corridors, peeling paint, flickering bulbs. Whoever had been here was gone. But not long ago, the smell of cigarette smoke still hung in the air. He crouched, touched the floor, wet footprints. Fresh, leading toward the loading docks. Come on, he whispered. They followed. The loading bay door stood half open, rain blowing in sideways. His flashlight cut across the puddles, catching movement for just a second. Someone sprinting across the lot, dark jacket. Hood up. Stop. Police. He fired once into the air. The figure didn't slow. Juno bolted forward, leash jerking from his hand. Juno, heel. But she was gone, bounding through the mud, barking like mad. Miles ran after her, boots slipping, mud splashing up his legs. The figure reached the fence, climbed halfway. Then Juno hit, teeth clamping into his arm. The man screamed. Miles reached him seconds later, gun drawn. Hands where I can see them. The man struggled, face half hidden, rain pouring over both of them. Get her off me, he shouted. You don't know what's in there. Miles kicked the mud aside, pressed the barrel to his shoulder. Who are you? The man spat blood, shivering. It wasn't me. I was paid to move the boxes. What boxes? The one she was in. Miles's finger tightened on the trigger. Who paid you? The man coughed, eyes darting toward the depot. He's still in there. Before Miles could ask another question, a single shot rang out from somewhere inside the building. The man jerked once, eyes going wide, then fell silent in the mud. Juno barked, snarling at the darkness. Miles turned toward the depot, light flickering again in that storage hallway, a shadow moving inside. Someone else was still there, someone who just made sure the only witness couldn't talk. Rain hammered harder now. The depot had transformed into something else, something heavier. The drizzle of earlier had become a storm, the kind that presses wet air against your skin and muffles everything else. Sheriff Miles Hanlon stood in the muck outside the loading bay, rain running down his collar. Boots sunk into the cold gravel. Juno crouched beside him, still growling, teeth bared toward the yawning shadow of the depot. The body in the storage room was still fresh in his mind. Pale, unnatural under the flashlight's beam. But something deeper gnawed at him. The words on the wall. They weren't supposed to find her. They weren't random. They were a message. And whoever wrote them didn't want it found. The call for backup. The radio crackled again, faint through the storm. Unit 3? Unit 3? This is dispatch. You copy. Copy, Miles said, rubbing his wet face. We've got another situation. I need state troopers, homicide, coroner, everything. Someone's inside the depot. Suspect just took out my only witness. There was static. Then, copy that. ETA 30 minutes. Miles hung up and scanned the lot. His flashlight picked out the dark skeleton of the depot, the open storage room door yawning like a wound. Juno was at the edge of the hall again, barking, her whole body tense. She wasn't just reacting to something outside. She was focused inside. He looked at her leash. His fingers were trembling. Easy, girl. Let's check it out. He stepped forward, boots squelching. The smell was stronger now, metallic, sour, like old blood and oil mixed. Into the depot. The hallway was different inside now, darker, more oppressive. The storm outside roared against the corrugated metal walls. Every step he took echoed. His flashlight beam bounced off boxes stacked 3 deep. Nails stuck out of crates like teeth. The air was humid. His breath came out in quick bursts. The storage room was at the end of the hall. He could hear something faint beyond the sound of rain. A whisper. Not a human voice exactly, more like someone breathing heavily. He approached the door slowly. Juno pulled at her leash again, growling low. Miles glanced back. "You've got nothing to worry about," he whispered, but he didn't believe it himself. He tested the doorknob. Locked. Again. The padlock was smashed now, the metal hanging loose. Someone had been inside since he opened it. He pressed his shoulder to the door. It creaked open an inch. Then silence. A low creak behind him made him spin. No one there. Just rain dripping through a crack in the roof. He forced himself forward. Discovery in the dark. The flashlight cut across the room. The floor was slick with something dark. Miles stepped carefully. Boxes littered the room, some torn open, their contents shredded. Papers, plastic wrappings, and fabric scraps scattered. In the corner, Juno barked again, sharp, insistent. Miles followed her gaze. A small crawl space in the corner of the room. The air coming out of it smelled worse. Fetid, coppery. The opening was narrow, barely wide enough to fit a human body. Above it, scratched into the concrete wall, were more words. He's still inside. His stomach turned. A noise came again, muffled footsteps deeper inside the depot. Miles pressed his shoulder against the wall, gun drawn. Who's there? His voice cracked against the storm outside. No answer, only breathing. Then a whisper, too faint to catch. Miles took a deep breath. "Stay," he told Juno, though she wasn't listening. She slipped past him, slipping toward the crawl space. "Juno, no!" he shouted, but she vanished inside the dark gap, into the crawl space. Without thinking, Miles crawled after her. The space was tight, squeezing his shoulders. Rainwater pooled beneath him. The flashlight beam shook with every movement. Somewhere above, metal groaned. He crawled for what felt like minutes, until the space opened into a larger underground chamber. His light swept over piles of crates, some stacked, some tipped over. And there, in the far corner, something froze him. A man, bound, sitting against the wall, soaked, breathing hard. His eyes wide, locked on something beyond Miles's beam. Juno was at his side, barking softly, teeth bared. The man flinched when Miles stepped closer. "Sheriff Hanlon." Miles said quietly, "Who are you?" The man didn't answer. Instead, his voice came out ragged, trembling. "You weren't supposed to find her." Miles stepped forward. His boots slipped in the muck, and the man flinched again. Then Miles saw it. The faint, angry bruising across the man's neck. The callous ropes binding him. He wasn't the one who attacked. He was a prisoner. Who did this? Miles asked. The man swallowed hard. They brought her here. All of them. You have to. A sharp sound interrupted him. A click of metal. From behind them, another voice, deep, controlled, cold. "Don't move." The beam swung. Another figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, broad, wearing a soaked jacket, his face hidden by the hood. In his hand, a pistol. Miles froze. Juno growled low. "Step away," the figure said calmly. "Or she dies." The man on the floor whimpered. Miles's heart pounded. Who are you? What the hell is going on here? The figure stepped closer into the light, rain dripping from his hood. His voice was low. You weren't supposed to find her. Now nothing can be undone. Juno barked again, louder, as if warning him. The figure's gun moved slightly, a slow, deliberate gesture that made Miles's blood run cold. The man on the floor screamed softly. Don't, please don't. The figure spoke again, voice like gravel. You don't understand, Sheriff. This isn't just about her. This is about everything. Miles swallowed hard. Somewhere in that storm, something inside the depot was breaking apart, and he still didn't know what the hell everything meant. The betrayal. From somewhere deeper in the shadows, a sound echoed, a voice Miles recognized. Not the man on the floor, not the figure with the gun. Miles! His breath hitched. He knew that voice. It was Deputy Cole Travers, his second-in-command, his closest confidant for years. Cole stepped forward from the darkness, soaked through, gun drawn. You shouldn't have come here alone, Cole said quietly, almost mournfully. They told me to stop you. I tried, but you found her anyway. Miles stared. Cole, what the hell is this? Cole didn't answer. He just looked away, eyes fixed on something behind Miles. And then the second figure moved, pushing the bound man aside. They stepped fully into the beam, revealing a face Miles would never forget. The missing girl from Maple Hollow. The woman in the storage room was alive, but not human anymore. Her eyes were empty. Miles felt his knees weaken. The rain outside roared louder, masking the sound of her voice when she whispered, They told me to wait. The two men stared at each other, guns trembling. Juno barked, snarling. And somewhere deep inside the depot, metal groaned again, louder this time. Something was coming. The air inside the depot was heavier now, thick with cold and something darker, something that didn't belong to the world above. Rain drummed against the roof with a furious insistence. Somewhere in the shadows, metal groaned like it was alive. Sheriff Miles Hanlon's breath came fast. His eyes darted between Cole Travers, the hooded man, the bound prisoner, and the woman, the one in the storage room, who was standing there like a statue, her wet hair clinging to her face. Her eyes were gone, replaced by a pale glaze, an unnatural emptiness. Juno growled low, a deep sound that vibrated through concrete. Miles knew instinctively. She could sense it too. This isn't about you finding her, Cole said quietly, almost to himself. It's about stopping her from leaving. The hooded figure stepped forward, gun aimed not at Miles, but at the woman. Sheriff, she can't be allowed to go. If she gets out, everything changes. Everything. Miles blinked. What the hell does that mean? She spoke then, her voice dry, hollow. They built me here, kept me locked for a reason. Something in her tone froze the air. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pleading. It was certainty. The truth unravels. Cole stepped closer. Miles, you have to understand. I've known for months. This isn't just an accident or a crime. It's containment. That depot, it's a prison. Miles's hand tightened on his weapon. Containment of what? Cole hesitated. His voice cracked. Of her. She isn't supposed to exist. And if she leaves, you won't just lose your town. You'll lose yourself. The woman shifted slightly, head tilting. They call me Project Haven. I'm what they feared would happen if science ignored limits. They locked me here to keep me from seeing the world. Miles felt bile rise in his throat. Project Haven? That's insane. Tell that to the ones who paid for the silence. Cole said. The bound man groaned from the floor. They're all here watching. His voice broke. It's not just them. They have eyes everywhere. Miles's radio crackled again, static. Then a whisper. Don't open it. He looked around. The whisper wasn't coming from a radio. It was inside his head. The final choice. The hooded man lowered his gun slightly. If she leaves, the world changes. Not in a good way. You have to stop her. Miles's heart hammered. Cole stepped toward the woman. Miles! We swore we'd keep her locked. You don't understand the cost of breaking that promise. She stepped forward. I don't want to hurt anyone, but they made me what I am. and they will come for me again. If I stay locked, I die. If I leave, they die too. There was silence except for the rain. Juno was growling softly, staring at her. Miles looked from Cole to the hooded man, then back at her. Somewhere in him, years of duty and instinct collided with doubt. "You want me to make that choice?" he said quietly. Cole nodded once. "Yes." The betrayal. Before Miles could answer, Cole raised his gun. "I'm sorry, Miles." The shot rang out. It echoed through the depot like a clap of thunder. Cole's aim was true. The hooded man dropped instantly, blood spilling into the puddles at his boots. Miles spun, but Cole wasn't looking at him. Cole stepped toward the woman, gun still drawn. "It's time," he said softly. "You promised." Her expression shifted, something between sorrow and relief. She nodded once, then turned toward the locked storage room. "Don't," Miles said, voice breaking. "You don't understand what you're doing." Cole's gaze never wavered. "Neither do you." He shoved her toward the storage room. The bound man screamed. Juno lunged, but Miles grabbed her leash. The two of them struggled for control. Cole stepped inside the storage room and shut the door, locking it. The sound of the lock snapping echoed louder than any gunshot. The quiet aftermath. Miles sank to his knees in the rain, Juno leaning into him, her growls fading into whines. Somewhere inside the depot, the sound of metal shifting began again. Backup arrived 20 minutes later. They found Cole dead in the hallway. The bound man was gone. The storage room was locked, and inside, nothing but silence. Miles refused to speak of what he'd heard before the storm swallowed it all. Don't open it. The town never spoke of the depot again. Sheriff Hanlon requested a transfer. Juno was retired from service. But every night, when the rain falls just so, he hears her voice. Quiet, hollow. "They weren't supposed to find me." And he wonders if Cole was telling the truth. If locking that door was really the end, or the beginning of something far worse.